Hi, David. I just noticed the attachment.
Hey, David, would you mind sh letting me share the screen if you're the host?
I'm sorry, I was stepped away. Did you say something?
Yeah, I can't. I was just wanted to share the agenda.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Give me a second. You should be able to do it now. We had I think 14 or 15 people register.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna give people probably like a couple more minutes till like 12:04. We'll get started. Five. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
And is Mary Ellen here? Did you get the link?
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
I never think to look for attachments.
Mary Ellen, this is Susie Morales. I just want to thank you again. I know we went back and forth quite a bit, but I'm really
Yeah,
glad that we finally got to do this.
thanks. I'm happy to be here.
We're gonna give everybody just a few more minutes to join, and then we'll get started shortly. All right, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining. Welcome to AZAP, the Arizona Association of Environmental Professionals. I'm glad to see so many faces today and excited to have Mary Ellen with us from SHPO. And I'm just going to go through our agenda really quick. So I'm Lauren Brocus. I'm the newly elected president for AZAP. I also work for NV5 as an environmental planner. I do a lot of work in CEQA and NEPA related projects. And I'd love to hear from some of our members. Do brief introductions, just where you work and what you do really quick. That would be awesome. Can we go ahead and start with Susie?
Sorry, I was eating my lunch.
Sorry.
Hi. Susie Morales with Recon Environmental. I'm a NEPA coordinator planner, and that's my cat. He's crying in the background. And I work on a variety of BLM, CBP, Park Service, Army Corps, variety of federal agency NEPA related projects. And thank you again, Mary Ellen.
I'll kind of let people go if they want. David, you want to go next? And then whoever else, just jump in after David.
You're on mute.
David.
Sorry. Yes, David McIntyre. I am the secretary for AZAEP. You are probably sick of emails from me. I own McIntyre Environmental. We're a small environmental consulting firm here in Oro Valley, and we primarily do SQL work in Southern California and NEPA work for a number of different agencies throughout the country.
I will hop in next. I'm Jennifer Jennings. I am the immediate past president of AZAEP. Happy to have Lauren on board taking over. I am an environmental planner at Tier Right-of-Way Services. I had the pleasure of working with Mary Ellen way back in the day. I work on a variety of projects from transportation to solar to transmission lines.
Hi, I'm Melinda Jones. I'm the Vice President for AZAP, and I work for the City of Phoenix in the Neighborhood Services Department. I serve as the Environmental Compliance Officer for all of our HUD work. Thank you for coming to speak with us, Mary Ellen.
Nice to be here.
Hi, I'm Judy Krause with Kaufman Associates. We're based here we're aviation consultants, so I work primarily with the FAA.
I am Marinella Papa. I am with McDOT. I've been a member of AZAP for many years now. I do appreciate David's emails all the time. Thank you for those. And thank you, Mary Ellen.
Hi guys, I'm Nancy Favor. I'm a NEPA specialist. I work with the BLM in Arizona, working on renewable energy projects mostly. So glad to have Mary Ellen. Good to see you. I've known her for a while. You're awesome. Looking forward to hearing your talk. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anthony Scalero. I work for WSP. We're a consultant firm, civil. We do a lot of ADAT work and other work for a lot of transportation and other kinds of projects. Definitely, I'm a NEPA planner, and we definitely have lots and lots of projects that involve cultural resources and Section 106 consultation. So I'm very much interested in hearing from Mary Ellen, and I appreciate you being with us today. And I also appreciate David's emails.
I'm Allie Hewlett. I work with Kaufman Associates as an environmental planner. I primarily deal with NEPA documentation with the FAA.
Hey y'all, Jerry Berthollet here. I'm an environmental and land use planner with Sonoran Land Resources. We do a lot of like right-of-way permitting, stuff for transmission lines, pipelines, stuff like that, but we are open to anything. So thanks for having us.
All right. Are we missing anyone else? Megan Martin?
Hi, I'm Megan Martin. I am with Salt River Project, and I am the manager of environmental policy and strategy over here.
Awesome. And then I think we're missing, let's see, Greg?
Yep, I am Greg Taylor. I'm a project manager at Westland Resources. I kind of help out mostly with biology and environmental related topics. I'm just starting off with becoming more familiar with agricultural resources, specifically in TEP and SHPO.
Awesome. And I think that's everyone for now. So we'll go ahead and I'm just gonna obviously let Mary Ellen Walsh introduce herself when we get there, but I'm just gonna run through the agenda really quick and a few little announcements. So general announcements. So our membership is approximately 213, including those under the corporate. We have 109 corporate. And then we have 63 students, which is awesome. If you know any students that are interested, to attend these webinars is free, and also to become a student member is free. We have about 552 on our listserv. And again, our corporate membership is $150 yearly, and that allows for unlimited.
Nope, stop. Bethany pointed out to me this is an error that I need to correct and have not. It's 15 employees.
15 employees.
Yeah.
And then that they can attend at the member rate for dinner meetings, attendance at webinars, and then free job postings. So shout out to some of our corporate members. We have HDR, Jacobs, Logan Simpson, McIntyre Environmental, Recon, SRP, AECom, Aztec, SWICA, Tierra Right of Way, Westland Resources, Environmental Response Inc., Kimley Horn, and WSP. As you guys heard me mention, for the student memberships, it's free, so we really want to encourage those. And virtual meetings are free of cost too. And yeah, and if you guys all got the agenda, there is an online membership form attached if you're not already a member. I encourage you, please join us in becoming a member. That's where you can make our payment. And then a little update on our scholarship fund. I'm doing some back work right now. I'm the chair for our AZ Scholarship Fund. So thank you to the committee that's been helping me out for that. We're hoping to get that up and running next year in 2025. So I'm super excited for that. We also have updated our job postings, David, as of
Yes.
Okay.
We have. And let me just add that we have been posting probably more job postings on our LinkedIn page as I see them. I put them onto the AZAEP LinkedIn page. And I try to put them onto our webpage. It's a little bit more time consuming than just throwing something on LinkedIn. If you have a posting and you send me, I figured out how to do this with just a link. So if you want to post something on our board on our webpage, just send me a link to the job posting and I'll get it up there. And it is free for corporate members. It's free for agencies. Any public agency can post. And then it's $75 for companies that are not corporate members, which is half the cost of membership. So you should just join.
Yes. Thanks, David. All right. So, and some of our upcoming and future speakers. So obviously today we have Mary Ellen with the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO. And in November, David sent out an email. We're actually going to do a volunteer event on the 16th in November for St. Mary's Food Bank. So we have a limited amount of spots, but there should be a registration for that. And we are going to host our holiday party on December 5th as well. And then stay tuned for our programming for the upcoming year. So we should have that coming out real soon here.
There's also going to be a volunteer event in Tucson on the 23rd. It's very similar to the one in Phoenix. And I posted that on our webpage, but I will be sending out an email specifically pertaining to that later today. And there is a volunteer event in Tucson if anyone wants to attend this Saturday. I'll send out an email about both of those this week.
Awesome. And then some of our at-large and our treasurer secretary, thanks to everyone on the board for helping me out. And I'm gonna stop sharing so Mary Ellen can go ahead and give her presentation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Let me pull it up before I start. My background is I'm an archaeologist didn't do the math right. I do have 40 years experience as of this month. I started out in consulting until 2013 was when I joined SHPO as an archaeological compliance specialist. I worked for Logan Simpson for about 10 years before that, and that's where I worked with Jen and Nancy. Learned a little bit about NEPA, but not enough. And so with going to SHPO, especially these last few years, my focus has really shifted. A lot of what we do is just standard routine 106 compliance, and we work in a little vacuum at times, or we work with agencies, and we try to collaborate more frequently, collaborating these days in order to get more perspectives, being more inclusive, see where everybody's at with that, as we're dealing with more than just the diversity, equity, inclusion, where, part of our thing is, although we don't have a role in tribal consultation, we do engage with tribes and we want to hear their voices. So a lot of what I'm going to say today is kind of the new revolution of where SHPO's at in terms of our priorities. So let me pull this up. Okay. And I need to start it from. Okay. So again, thanks for having me here today. I do have a tendency to speak fast, so let me know if I need to slow down as we go through the presentation. While this is not Section 106 training per se, I will be going over the topics and definitions of relevance. It's not a long presentation, so you should have plenty of time for questions if you have any. And one of the things I didn't think to put in here is that I know when I was a consultant, we worked with the planners, but we didn't really collaborate. We were given our little piece to put into an environmental document, and we didn't really have any kind of rigorous review of the whole alternatives, the purpose and need. And I'm not saying that that is necessary all the time, but I think collaboration with between the NEPA planners and the cultural resources professionals throughout the duration of a project is probably going to be more beneficial if you're not doing that already. I'm hoping, it's been 13 years since I've been out of that side of it. Hopefully you've all moved in that direction now as it is. So SHPO gets its authorities under the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. We do more than compliance, but that is a very large part of our program. And I work with a staff of 4 other archaeologists, an architect, and a historian, plus the State Historic Preservation Officer, who is also an archaeologist and public historian, to complete reviews of federal undertakings. Under Section 106, a federal agency is required to take into account the effects of their undertakings on historic properties and afford the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation a reasonable opportunity to comment. A federal undertaking refers to projects, activities, or programs funded in whole or in part under the direct or indirect jurisdiction of a federal agency, those carried out with federal financial assistance, and those requiring a federal permit, license, or approval. The APE, Area Potential Effects, is the geographic area within which an undertaking may directly or indirectly cause alterations in the character of or use of historic properties, if any such properties are present. And what are historic properties? They are cultural resources that have been listed in or determined eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. At times, an agency and a SHPO will agree to treat a property as eligible for a specific undertaking if it's not already been determined, and that's usually on a case-by-case basis, just to define whether or not further treatment is necessary. For a property to be eligible, it has to have local, regional, or national significance and retain one or more aspects of integrity. And the aspects of integrity are really subjective, but if you're talking about an archaeological site, we want a site that's not fully disturbed, that the artifacts are still in situ, not just picked up looters piles everywhere. So that's what integrity means there. But archaeological sites, while archaeological sites are most often determined eligible under criterion D for their information potential, you need to realize that's generally a Western science perspective. We've been hearing in consultation for years how that's not sufficient for tribes, and we're really taking that to heart and are moving past that and making sure that tribal voices are heard, that they have the opportunity to also provide information about eligibility of sites. We review reports for adequacy, and if cultural resources are identified, the agency asks for our concurrence on determinations of eligibility, and then ultimately on a finding of effect. The findings of effect include only no historic properties affected, which means cultural resources, if present, were determined not eligible for inclusion in the National Register, or no cultural resources were identified. No adverse effect means the historic qualities are present, but they will not be directly or indirectly affected by the project. An adverse effect means the historic property cannot be avoided. You'll sometimes hear of a conditional no adverse effect. Basically, we're saying it's a no adverse effect provided you will do monitoring or something, maintain the avoidance measures. But do note that because of a lot of problems we've had over the past few years with some mostly utilities, where there's a lot more damage to sites because they didn't put the monitor in place, we are saying if you're in a site, it's an adverse effect. And you have to do some kind of treatment, and that requires a memorandum of agreement as well. I'll discuss that in a minute. So what else do? We provide technical assistance to agencies and tribes and the public in their navigation of the 106 four-step process. And we assist in the preparation of agreement documents. The agreement documents relative to a specific undertaking include a memorandum of agreement when the effects are known, and programmatic agreement when the undertaking is complex, phased, or the effects cannot be known till later. We do have some disagreements with agencies about which document is appropriate. In all honesty, there's no difference in the time it takes for development of a programmatic agreement versus a memorandum of agreement. People confuse that with what is a programmatic agreement, in which we are creating efficiencies for the consultation processes, screened exemptions and the like for a program as a whole for an agency. That does take a lot more time. So NEPA and SHPO, our role is minimal. It's fairly limited. We do have a role though, because NEPA requires compliance with other federal laws, such as Section 106. We do always want the opportunity to review draft EAs and EISs. I'm on a few lists, but we don't get them all. None of us get them as we should. SHPO will most likely be a participating agency, not a cooperating agency, but do ask. Our reviews in the past have been, as I said, pretty minimal. We're actively changing that in favor of more robust reviews of the alternatives, not just the cultural overview, but the larger landscape, and looking to see that there's been some integration of Indigenous knowledge, tribal perspectives. There's a lot of executive orders, policies out there for the cultural resources people, which is why you need to collaborate to make sure this is all occurring in your NEPA documents as well. So NEPA substitution is a thing. It's actually integration of NEPA and the Section 106 process, and please don't. We don't like it. The Advisory Council has created guidance for integrating NEPA and Section 106. The process is supposed to create efficiencies, promote transparency and accountability, and support a broad discussion of effects to the human environment. NEPA and Section 106 are supposed to help inform on one another, but it's messy because the focus and definitions are too dissimilar, and we all tend to lose sight of where we're at in the process, what steps have been completed. I worked on only one or two, and they just don't go well. You just don't know where you're at for some reason. And again, if you look at the slide, there are different things that we are directed to focus on. The definitions do not match. So if you are talking with your Section 106 people, hopefully, again, more collaboration early. There's and I forget how it works for NEPA when if you need to, if there's your schedule when that kicks off, when you have to have your completion date. I know there are regulations in effect now in terms of how long the NEPA process can be, but there is also early consultation, which is more of a coordination, not a formal initiation of the Section 106 process, that is helpful if you want to have that done before the 106 coordinator steps in to actually initiate consultation with our office. And we recommend it for complex projects, anything that would have an EA and an EIS. Okay. So what is consultation? SHPO's role and responsibilities under Section 106 is consultation, and they're always initiated by the federal agency. It's the process of seeking, discussing, and considering the views of other consulting parties, and where feasible, seeking agreement with them. Again, Section 106 defines a process. It does not mandate an outcome. One thing we hear from tribes when we're talking about NEPA is that there are alternatives, and essentially the agency has made a decision before it's even gone to the tribes for review and comment. And for SHPO either, but we don't worry about the outcome. Again, we are only concerned about the process being followed adequately, sufficiently. But it's a good idea to consider that for tribes, often the no action alternative is going to be best, but ask them if they have an alternative. We've just been reviewing a project for Park Service, and they only gave 2 alternatives, which is not good practice, as I'm sure most of you would think. And the tribe is saying, we have a 3rd idea, consider this. And now it's a lot of, can we do this? You know, probably what's driving this is a lot of political input and the schedule. So again, talking early with tribes and SHPO is really important. We are advocates for tribes, if you haven't heard that by now in just these few slides that I've presented. Consultation requires the agency to make a good faith effort to identify historic properties that may be affected by the undertaking, and to consult with SHPO, TIPO tribes, and other interested parties. So anybody can say that there is a traditional cultural property which is of significance for like ceremonial use or activity, perhaps. It could be a place that a group of people come back to. There was a recent listing of the Randolph community as a traditional cultural property. It's a Black community. There's not much standing in the way of structures, but it was listed to the National Register as a TCP because there is history significance of people coming back to this location. So there are more than just us making sure that there's been a good faith effort to identify historic properties. And then if the historic properties will be adversely affected, the agency and consulting parties collaborate and negotiate ways to avoid, minimize, and mitigate the adverse effects. Generally, that is with the development of an agreement document that outlines what has been discussed. Unfortunately, what we see a lot of times when it comes to archaeological sites is an agreement document that focuses the mitigation on data recovery, and that's pretty much it. We have been pushing it back a lot the last couple of years, making sure there's what's the public benefit, if that's appropriate, what's the tribal benefit, and making sure there is outreach all around. So data recovery should be or could be limited to a sample of a site in order to have money for another part of the mitigation. Like for tribes, it's development of an education program, funds to help support that. There's a lot of talk about creative mitigation. What does that mean? It's looking at alternative ways to increase the value of the tribal or other community needs. So turning to what SHPO needs for review for consultation. To us, it's an easy process, but we do need specific pieces of information to consider the package complete. Again, early consultation to inform us of the undertaking is a good start. meetings throughout the whole process is fine, just to touch base. A lot of the times the projects start, there's a 5-year delay and we're coming back to it. You really need to make sure that the Section 106 people are picking up the ball again and saying, hey, we're back to this project, nothing has changed, or we have a change in scope, therefore we are continuing consultation. If formal consultation doesn't need to continue, but you're just informing everybody that things are moving forward, the tribes change staff pretty regularly, especially, the presidents and the council members. They may not have the same opinion. So it really is advisable that you connect with whoever's in office at the time. We also recommend, let's see, the complete consultation package, and I'm not talking about early consultation here, minimally includes a thorough description of the undertaking and of the APE and the identification efforts that were used to identify historic properties. So the agency would submit a cover letter that provides any determinations of eligibility and request SHPO concurrence, again, on the APE and DOEs. We allow for bundling of information, even in initial consultation. So your first letter that's formally initiating consultation with our office, the agency can state, this is what the undertaking is, here's how we define the APE, this is what we did to identify historic properties, and the survey report or the inventories are attached, and please concur. So at that time, we will take it all apart and we might concur on a portion of it, but not everything. Or if it's all in good shape, in our opinion, it will be that we concur on everything. When we're looking at reports, we're looking for the adequacy to current professional standards. So the cultural resources team with whom you work should be reviewing this to make sure that all the guidance from the various agencies, the State Museum and SHPO, are actually meeting those requirements. But the bundling cannot include monitoring plans, treatment plans, or agreement documents before you've had concurrence on the rest. We do need to go through at least those first 4 steps before, and the concurrence before actually moving forward with the resolution of adverse effects. Something to remember that we see a lot is, when we do our review, and I'm specifically thinking of determinations of eligibility here, we're not in the field, and the person in the field in the report has to convey as much information as is needed for us to visualize the significance of that site. And we may not have enough information, in our opinion, to do so. So the agency should be doing the review first, and some agencies have the staff to do so and others don't. And they rely on SHPO instead. But in our opinion, we're not going to tell the consultant that their recommendations need to be changed. We are saying we disagree with the agency's determination. The consultant makes a recommendation, the agency makes a determination, and SHPO concurs or not on that determination of eligibility. And then we move forward. If the agency and SHPO cannot agree on a determination of eligibility, the agency can, I think SHPO as well, can seek advice from the keeper of the National Register to make a determination based on the information provided. I've seen that happen once recently. So what are the best consultation practices to facilitate SHPO review? Plan and schedule. You guys, planners, that's what you do. You schedule everything out. I've seen those milestone charts. Don't forget that we have 30 days to review every time we get new consultation. We can try to expedite, but it depends on the rest of our workload. When everybody is talking about the area potential effects, remember that it considers visual, physical, auditory, vibrational, atmospheric, direct and indirect effects, and reasonably foreseeable cumulative effects. Most important when you're talking about projects that have vertical built environment considerations. What we're telling consultants now is when they're doing survey. Now, it's easier in a small area, granted, but stop and look around. Look to see if you can see the important topographical features from your survey area, because those could be a very significant interest to tribes. Don't just look down. Identification of all land jurisdictions. When I was on the consultant side, that seemed to be the biggest project obstacle to getting some of the compliance written, because of all the underlying land management things. And I know there are some sources that may not be as reliable as others, but it's the agencies or the consultants' responsibilities to identify all land jurisdictions. For survey reports and in the letters, make sure there's a distinction between the APE, the project area, and the survey area if they are not all one and the same. A thing to remember about the APE, when we're talking about a class 3 survey, it really only is necessary for the physical ground disturbing areas, whereas a reconnaissance survey of the larger area and background research is used for the remainder of the APE to assess the visual, auditory, and other effects. Also note that a critical evaluation of surveys that were completed more than 10 years ago has to be done. The State Museum has a rule now that requires, if you need a new survey, that requires new survey for projects that were for areas that were surveyed more than 10 years ago. SHPO's opinion is that ASM doesn't have that authority. So if we say that you do not need a survey, what we're saying is don't consult with the State Museum, because their authority only comes in when an actual permit to survey is necessary. It's very confusing and it's been problematic this last year. But if SHPO says a survey is not necessary, there's then no reason to consult with the State Museum on any project. They're only involved, again, when a permit is actually required. Again, I mentioned the QA/QC of reports for adequacy, professional standards. That is necessarily done on the side of the consultant. And as I mentioned, we do have a memo that's on our website that you guys can check out for the best practices. SHPO priorities for the coming years. And I always say this, it's for my retirement. It's kind of my last projects. Continued collaboration with tribes, agencies, and consultants towards the stewardship of tribal heritage, the integration of traditional ecological knowledge in Section 106, landscape level preservation, and alternative and creative mitigation. And with all of that, we're looking to revise and update the SHPO guidance documents. We do want to include the tribal perspective into everything that we can. And we will, as I said, be doing a more rigorous review of the Section 106 process and NEPA documents. Related to our tribal interest in all this, we are working on the statewide historic preservation plan. This is a plan that applies at all levels of government and tribal government. And it's an umbrella, basically, like NEPA is an umbrella, that we hope our partners are looking at. So this was developed beginning with our efforts from last year's Historic Preservation Conference. It's completed with all stakeholder input. We envision an Arizona where our diverse cultures and collective heritage are embodied in places and unique stories are celebrated, fostering vibrant communities that thrive economically and socially. There you have some NEPA, words. Through generational stewardship, education, dynamic partnerships, and a balanced approach to preservation and development, together we can preserve our historical and cultural places for present and future generations. Aspirational, definitely. And then the two priorities that I've been involved working on, also very aspirational visions. One is for the collaborative stewardship of tribal heritage, acknowledging and respecting the deep connections and ancestral ties of Native American tribes to the land, utilizing tribal perspectives and indigenous knowledge and planning, and practicing collaborative stewardship to promote the well-being and preservation of natural and cultural resources for current and future generations. And then last on these is our landscape level preservation. Again, and in none of our priorities are we specifically talking about tribal values. except for the stewardship one. This one, though, think about ranching communities and other people that have wide scale projects across the landscape. This was actually developed with ranchers and tribes. Cultural landscapes provide a sense of place and identity. They map our relationship with the land over time, and they are part of Arizona's heritage. We aspire to elevate the importance of generational heritage in living and working landscapes to maintain our sense of place and identity in conservation and development. Again, projects have to move forward. We do try to balance. Active stewardship of the land, including its natural and heritage resources, recognizes community values, plans, and future uses. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is this government-to-government consultation toolkit. I know the archaeologists use it routinely to help identify the tribes that should be reviewed in their background research, who has affinity with the areas now. It has a consultation map that you put your project, you select a location based on where your project is, and then it identifies all the tribes that should be consulted for Section 106 purposes. The maps were created by the tribes for us to show their affiliation areas, and the agencies have provided their information in terms of contacts for the tribes to reach out to. Unfortunately, the agency's part is not always up to date. We can use more help with that if you see things that are out of sync with, who's working there today. But importantly, what it does have is tribal pages that show the contact information and the protocol on how to consult what's needed. We are actually in the process of updating that. We realized a lot of tribes don't tell us if they want electronic only, or should they be getting who should be getting the report, electronic or hard copy. So that's the first thing we're doing. I have an intern working with us, a Public Allies member, who's also from the Navajo Nation. He's going to start reaching out to tribes next week and getting this updated. And then phase 2, we got a BLM grant a couple of years ago. We're finally going to implement it and work on making the toolkit something that that tribes can use by linking to agency web pages. And I think this is where planners can really help. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. Again, early consultation, maybe it's just putting a pin on a map to show where a project was located and contact information. So the tribes can look and say, oh, look, we had this coming down the pike. Let's go out and take a look at it, what's out there. Because a lot of times the scheduling and trying to get meetings with the tribes and getting into the field is the most difficult part of the consultation process. So I think this will eventually help. I mean, we really need to collaborate with anybody that has experience. Right now, we're using KMZ files because the tribes found that worked best, but we think we can do a dual platform that also has GIS capabilities. I don't know if it's something that the planners could help agencies maintain by putting the pins in on the projects and things like that. So we're open to discussion, and anybody that wants to help us with that, just reach out. That's really all I have. I didn't want to, as I said, get into the 106 process itself. But if you have any questions about it, I can certainly do that. And if you want to see the toolkit, I can take this down and put that up.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if we could see the toolkit really quick.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me stop sharing. Is anything showing?
You can see your downloads, but not the toolkit. Oh, I think it's at the bottom if you just drag it up a little bit. No, no, I don't think so.
Okay. It's on our website. If you want to go to that. And then if you have any questions, just reach out and contact me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Opening it up for questions. If anyone has questions.
Oh, if you're going to contact I see one in the chat. Go to our AZ SHPO at azstateparks.gov email to submit any kind of consultation, and the administrator will log it in and then send it to the appropriate person.
Can you say that one more time? I was trying to write it, but I didn't.
Yeah, AZ SHPO.
AZ SHPO?
AZ.
Oh, AZ SHPO. Okay. .com.
In the chat.
Perfect. So just send it to that and then it'll get routed.
Yeah.
We don't put it to the State Historic Preservation Officer attention.
No, if you're going to write, you can do it because NEPA is informal consultation. For us, you can put it in as an email and say, hey, here's the document, whatever. Sometimes the agencies do formally submit to us, and that's fine. If you are going to write a letter, it should be directed to Catherine Leonard, the State Historic Preservation Officer.
Okay. Yeah, usually we'll contact SHPO as a scoping, like when we send out our EA scoping packet, but then when it's ready for the formal section 106, FAA does that.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Welcome.
I have a question. Hello, Marinella at McDodd. So our HPT is not here, but I was a little surprised to hear that you do not necessarily agree with ASM decision, the recent decision on resurveying. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So we have a guidance point in effect that says, look at surveys more than 10 years old to see if they meet the current standards. And that is based on the site definition, the transect interval, which is 20 meters or less, and the nature of the landform. Is there a possibility for erosion over time that would have covered or revealed more site information since then? What was the extent of ground disturbance at the time of the survey? So if you're looking at a survey in the forest, a lot of duff, and they're saying, oh, it's a good survey, but they've reported it was only 30% visibility. I'm like, you need to go out and resurvey, or at least do a sample survey. We do not believe that ASM has the authority to actually tell you that a survey is necessary. It comes under SHPO's authority to inventory historic properties. What happens though, SHPO doesn't have funds to do that. That's why the consultants do all that. But that's the main difference. If there is a survey that's over 10 years or around 10 years, we will probably say we recommend that you go out and relocate sites and assess their current condition. Maybe ask for a sample survey of the project area. But not necessarily on a case-by-case basis say that you need to do a new survey.
So, but where are they basing this request or this new guidance? State Museum.
They say they have authority. We say they don't. So but ASM has permitting authority. So if a survey is needed, you have to get a permit. So who defines when a survey is needed? That's the question, right? It's professional judgment to some extent, but whether or not the guidance is clear is the problem. So we are going to be revising that document. It does state that we reserve the right to say a new survey is needed, if it's more than 10 years old. We talked about any survey beyond the year 2000 really does need a new survey regardless, because GPS wasn't as good. It was only 5 years old at that point. For those reasons, we totally agree that a new survey is necessary. In other cases, though, we think it's sufficient just to go out and relocate sites and assess them.
Interesting. Are you discussing this further with ASM, this issue?
No, we tried. It doesn't work. It's up to the agencies and the professionals to say, hey, this just doesn't go with what SHPO is telling us. and where's your authority coming from?
Interesting. Okay.
And when I
Thank
say
you.
about not including ASM in consultation, the only reason to include ASM is if a new survey is required for state, county, or municipal land. The State Historic Preservation Act does not include city or county land. So it's kind of different authorities there too. But for the same reasons, we can tell you whether or not a survey is recommended.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question about the using the substitution process. And it's probably a BLM project that you worked on that gave you a bad
Probably.
a bad experience on that. But what are there some general guidelines you might suggest for how we can make that go smoother?
We all have to be on the same page. So I would say making sure we are meeting regularly. Use the advisory council guidance on how to integrate. Had the meetings to kick it off, and have update meetings throughout the project in order to make sure we're all in the same place. Like I said, a lot of it, I mean, this is the only one that actually really calls for Section 106 practitioners and NEPA planners to work together, right? It should be something that we do all the time anyway. And I realize it's hard. We all have our different priorities, but for the overall sake of any given project that requires an environmental analysis, that is probably the better practice, just to make sure you're collaborating.
Okay,
so there's a point of saying no historic properties are present, and then they're out of the picture.
Yeah. Because I think we're tending to want to do that more for some of these really large scale projects, like the larger transmission line type projects or utility corridor type things. I think we're doing that for our 368 energy corridor projects. So,
and I also noticed the wording in some of the documents. It's not clear if we are doing this NEPA integration or not. It's like, oh, we're coordinating NEPA with Section 106. That's not the same.
Yeah.
The language needs to be very clear about what we're doing.
Okay. Okay. Good input. Thank you.
You're welcome. Our door is always open if you have questions at any time. I'm the primary contact, but we also have on our webpage and our toolkit. I can put the link to the toolkit in here. Let me do that. On the SHPO page, you'll see a list of who SHPO staff is assigned to, what agencies. So if you want to talk to somebody specifically other than me about a project for the BLM, a BLM, we split it based across the state. I have got 3 reviewers now instead of just me. Park Service the same way, depending on where our staff is located. But other agencies, it's just 1 reviewer. So you can always go straight to that person and ask questions.
Does anyone else have any questions? Last minute questions?
Thank you again for your interest.
Yeah, well, with no further questions, thank you. We appreciate it. Mary Ellen, that was awesome. I learned a lot. So thank you as someone very junior in their career. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today.
And if you would like at any other time more on the full Section 106 process, we do have longer presentations that we can do. I just wasn't sure, I didn't want to overdo it for this one.
Thank you again, Mary Ellen.
You're welcome. Great. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.